To the Point with Kelly Dunn and Michael Williams.
It's been a tough year in Tallahassee for the state university system. Florida's state universities are slated to see budgets cut by $300 million or more in the new budget cycle that begins in July.
So what does that mean if your child is headed to a state school in Florida? And how will those cuts impact a growing and fast-changing school like Florida Atlantic University?
Our guest this Sunday, FAU's president, Dr. Mary Jane Saunders. President Saunders came to FAU from Cleveland State University in Ohio back in 2010, holding a bachelor's degree in biology from Boston University and your master's from the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. Quite an academic
doctorate.
And doctorate,
That's
of
right.
course. And we thank you so much for being with us this day.
Well, I appreciate
Botany
it.
also, you went on with your master's and doctorate. So academic credentials are sterling. You've had a tough go of it, as have all of your university president colleagues, and we want to begin our discussion there.
Exactly. Talk about the cuts and how badly they will affect FAU.
I think we have to put it in the context of continual budget cuts over the past 5 years. We get a portion of our money to run the university that we call the state subsidy, and that has been cut just about in half from 2007 to 2012.
From what to what?
From about our individual university, FAU used to get about $190 million from the state to subsidize higher education, and we're now just about below $100 million.
And what is that going to mean for, and what has it meant, what will it continue to mean in the future for programs? Are you seeing fewer programs you can offer? You're looking at a budget cut this year alone of about what?
Close to $30 million.
Will it mean less teachers, less programs? Are you going to have to cut programs in the next year?
I believe we will have to, and we have always been on a path of looking at what programs serve our students well, which ones get them jobs after graduation, which ones serve the need of our local economy, but there's not much left to cut at this point after 5 years of continual budget cuts.
Are there any programs that come to mind that you could discuss that might be the first ones you would look at eliminating?
It's a very complex discussion to look at that. You know, we always try to cut things that don't affect the students first and foremost. We don't want to cut any advising for students. We don't want to cut programs that students need to graduate in to get jobs locally.
But will there be degree programs that are no longer there?
Oh, absolutely.
And how will it affect, excuse me, your main campus is in Boca, but there are a
Absolutely.
number of FAU campuses.
right.
So, I mean, would some of those satellite campuses be closed? I mean, what kind of an effect throughout the entire FAU
I
system?
think we have to, at this point, examine all of those campuses and see which ones are serving the greatest numbers of students, which ones have a student base in the area that they need that campus to be local. What are we doing in distance education to make up for maybe a campus that's serving students within a 20 or 30 mile radius? Remember, Florida Atlantic University stretches 150 miles along the coast, and that's a lot of campuses to maintain.
With the student body at your main campus of what now?
That's about 20,000 on the main campus.
And overall,
And overall 30,000. So you can see the concentration is primarily in Boca.
are you and your staff prepared to be able to say these are the most likely programs that could be on the chopping block? These are the most likely satellite systems that are likely to be cut? Can you say that for us today?
Well, I want you to know that every single day this week we've been doing budget meetings from about 8 a.m. to about 6 or 7 or 10 p.m. So there's a lot of things under consideration right now, and so we're working very hard to see where we can make cuts that will affect students the least.
Well, and I mean, professors would have to be included in some sort of cutting out, well, especially if you're eliminating programs. I mean, personnel-wise, how many people do you think?
That's one of the problems, or the advantages of the university, is that we're very personnel rich. This is what we do for a living. We educate students. We have them in dormitories. We have advisors. We have a police force. We have groundskeepers. We have, you know, just like a city, we have people that maintain the physical plant. So we really do a lot in addition to educating students as well. And so you always look to try to make your cuts where it's not going to affect classroom instruction first and foremost.
Doctor, I don't want to be like the kid in the classroom and my teachers used to say, you already asked that question 3 times, be quiet. I remember it well. But I do want to ask one last time, are you able to say just yet which programs specifically you say? That's part of your internal discussions at this point.
No, and the thing is, this cut is coming upon us so rapidly. You know, we're talking about the next fiscal year, which starts July 1. So to take a budget and cut $30 million out of a budget in a period of 3.5 months is very difficult decision making.
Is higher education being shortchanged by state lawmakers?
Well, I think that, you know, I had been a professor in the Florida system for many years over at the University of South Florida, and I very much wanted to come back to the state because I really did appreciate the state's investment in higher ed. It had a system of community college and colleges and universities, articulation agreements that was the envy across the country.
I'm a product of that.
Affordable education, to be able to start 2 years at a community college, now state college, go into a university system, and we can't forget how affordable it still is. You know, it's ranked one of the least expensive university systems in the country. And if you add on to that the ability to start at a state college or community college, we really need to impress upon people that it's still very affordable, very accessible for Floridians.
Very fair point. Nationally, we do rank with some of the lowest tuition, even with hikes. Will FAU have the allowance that, say, UF and FSU have sought and have been receiving to raise tuition by set amounts each year? Are you all in that pool of universities? If so, what are you seeing in terms of tuition increases to try and make up for the shortfall?
Right. Well, interestingly, that tuition increase of 15%, which is the maximum allowed, has already been factored into that cut. When the legislature made that budget decision, it took into account everyone raising their tuition the full 15%. That cut I've been talking to you about of $30 million is after a tuition increase.
Will you be able to seek market rate increases for FAU? In
what
other words,
the state has allowed at this point in time is individual programs from any university going to market rate if it's a new program that's got a clientele that can afford it. The only 2 universities that are being discussed about going across the board to a market rate are allowing their tuition to float to the national average in a very short period of time is Florida and Florida State.
I know it's a good value. Well, it's one of the best values, and we are products of Florida universities for sure.
And the community college system. Yeah.
But, I mean, you know, it's also, we're in a tough time in the economy, so when we talk about on the news increases in tuition, and then, I mean, Bright Future scholarships are, you know, they're paring those down. It does feel like a squeeze, though, for parents, and it's still tough to say, it's such a great value, don't worry, because someone's got to pay the bills.
Yeah, it's definitely a squeeze. But I'd like to remind you and our viewers that the value of getting a college education over lifetime earnings far, you know, really surpasses the cost. There was a recent analysis in the state of Florida on just the state university system, comparing it to high school graduates in Florida versus graduates of the college or university system, and the college baccalaureate degree is worth about $800,000 over a lifetime, and a professional degree is worth $1.8 million over a lifetime, plus, of course, the quality of life, your options, your career opportunities.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's finish on another high note here as well, because there's a lot of good going on. We have a gleaming new stadium, new programs. I know that the Chamber in Boca really wants to integrate a medical, educational, technological component that you can be at a hub of. Talk about the good things. Talk about, even with these budget cuts, how you think, if you do, that you'll be able to hurdle them and move on is really a central focus of this community and a jobs driver.
Right. Well, we're so excited about having our new independent medical school.
Yeah.
And the numbers of applicants for our second-year class of 64 students is over 3,000 at this point.
Wow.
But another thing I want to talk about the value of the medical school is the fact that we've partnered with 5 hospitals to bring 250 to 300 residency programs into our hospitals, converting them from community hospitals really into teaching hospitals. That quality of life is going to have an impact on everyone in the community. So we're really delighted about everything that a medical school means in addition to just educating physicians.
FAU has really come into its own.
It has, absolutely. It's a wonderful school. I'm so proud to be its president. We will get through this tough time. We just wish everyone understood the value of higher ed and what it means to the community.
And the value of a major university sitting in our backyard.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's easy to lose sight of where FAU, always a great effort and a great tradition and a great program, but now it's on a whole new level.
Right. And one of the things I do is when some of the folks are coming to town looking for sites to move their businesses, the #1 institution they want to talk to is FAU to find out what our graduates are being trained in, how well we're doing, how many students we have, and they understand that value to the community.
Well, we appreciate you touting the successes, the many successes of FAU, and talking about the challenges that lie ahead for not only FAU, but all of the universities and state schools in Florida. Thank you very much, Dr. Mary Jane Saunders, for being with us.
Continued success to you and the school.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Our round table is coming up next. Robert Watson and Brian Crowley break down Super Tuesday results and Governor Scott's second go-around with the state legislature. Stay with us. Now for our roundtable with News Channel 5 political analyst and coordinator of the American Studies program at Lynn University, Dr. Robert Watson, and Brian Crowley, author of CrowleyPoliticalReport.com. Gentlemen, always great to have you with us. Thank you very much. Comments following Dr. Saunders from FAU or about the cuts to universities in general?
You know, I'm a professor, and I taught at FAU for 6 years, been a professor for over 20 years. The sad thing is Florida's economy is one of the lowest wage, skill, and tech economies in the United States. And at a time when there's not enough construction jobs in Florida, we're going to cut school construction. At a time when classrooms are crowded, we're going to cut school construction. At a time when we need a more technologically advanced economy, you know, we're gutting education. When our students are graduating in debt, we're going to increase tuition. And of course, for students graduating in debt, they're not buying homes, which hurts our economy. They're putting off lifestyle decisions like getting married, having children. I've seen this with increasing every year, worse and worse and worse. So I don't know what the answer is for Florida's economy, but I know what it's not. And it's not to hurt the economic engine that drives our economy, education.
And not to put another rain cloud over it, but last week we saw a court up in North Florida, Leon County judge said, wait a minute, you can't throw out people's rights to fight for a new contract. You can't tell state workers you arbitrarily and automatically have to give up 3% of your pay to the state pension fund. If that ruling's upheld and the state's going to appeal it, Brian, you're talking a couple of $1 billion of a bigger hole blown into the state budget. Talk about the possible impact.
You know, the impact would be huge, both in K through 12 and at the universities and in cities and then everywhere else. So, I mean, if they have to suddenly come back with this $1 billion to $2 billion, they're going to be in deep trouble trying to find that money. But to Robert's point about universities, you know, Rick Scott kind of waved a red flag in front of their faces a couple of months ago when he suggested that the university presidents explain whether or not the degrees that they are awarding are actually turning into jobs. I think he had a point when he made that assessment or tried to make that assessment. I think that the universities tend to just say, we're doing a good job, give us money, let us raise the tuition we need to raise, and just accept the fact that the things that we're doing are the right things to do. I don't know why the university system should be immune from having the kind of hard look that any other agency should have. I suggest that we would probably find considerable waste, as we do in most organizations. We would probably find some degrees that we might have second thoughts about still awarding. And I think it's becoming shocking that an awful lot of students are leaving school tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt.
It's true.
So we can argue that they're going to make more money, as she did, make more money having a bachelor's degree or a master's degree, but it's also taking them a lot longer. They're owing a house on these educations when they graduate, and they're taking years to pay off these debts.
If they ever do.
I do agree with Brian that universities do have to take that harder look, but two quick points. One is, in terms of students graduating and not having a job, a lot of our students are graduating and getting a job in another state because we just don't have the technology.
And losing faculty to other states.
And that's the second thing I was going to say. And we can cut out waste in universities, but I can personally attest we sure can't cut it from professors' salaries.
Your P&J sandwich is right over there on the corner.
My half a bottle of
Happy
water.
about that water we give you every time you walk in the building.
I'd save it.
That's right.
A topic, though, that all of us have a direct stake in for the economic and educational vitality in the state. Another topic we have a stake in, of course, is when, oh, when will they pick a GOP presidential nominee? I remember, a month and a half ago now, some very sage people said Florida pretty much may cinch it. In fact, I think just about everybody in Florida.
Yeah, exactly. You were in good company.
We're hoping those tapes have been destroyed.
Super Tuesday last week. Split decision. Romney wins, 6 states, but Rick Santorum can argue he had some pivotal wins in the South. Where are we going here?
Well, I'll say this. Super Tuesday wasn't so super. In previous years, 4 years ago, there were over 20 states. This time was only 10 states. Super Tuesday started in 1988. It was Chuck Robb, governor or senator in Virginia, that started it as a way of increasing the South's power and trying to minimize the influence of Iowa, New Hampshire, the early states. We really haven't seen much of that. And in a way, I think Super Tuesday is status quo Tuesday. Before Super Tuesday, Romney went in comfortably ahead but can't close the deal. Today, Romney's comfortably ahead but can't close the deal. So it might be status quo Tuesday. Is that a good one?
They'll rename it.
Yeah, okay, there we go.
It's still really tough for the other candidates to get the delegates that they need to surpass Romney. The Romney people have made it very clear now that this is a pure delegate fight. It's not just a state-by-state fight. It's a pure delegate fight. If Newt Gingrich or Ron Paul were to drop out of this race next week, as they should, there's no guarantee that their delegates would go to either Santorum or Mitt Romney. But, Romney has a very significant delegate lead right now. Santorum would have to blow him away in some other... Remember, these are proportional delegates in most of these states. Yeah. And it's still hard to see how you take away the majority of delegates from Romney. Although it's still possible that he won't cross the finish line and get the 1,144 that he needs, and you could wind up with a brokered convention.
So why, for the good of the party, doesn't someone drop out at this point?
Ego. I mean, Newt Gingrich cannot. Last week it was fascinating to watch Newt Gingrich stand there in front of the television audience and try to explain how his victory in the home state of Georgia proved that he was a viable candidate and he had beaten back the mainstream opponents because he won in Georgia. It was absurd. If he's half as smart as he likes to tell everybody he is, he knows he can't get there from here. And I don't know why Newt Gingrich is staying in the race. Ron Paul is in the race because it's part of his retirement plan. He didn't have anything else to do this year, so he's in his RV basically going from campground to campground and chattering on and on. But he's having no impact on this race.
Bottom line, who's the guy come August? And have, as you heard national pundits say all last week, have the Republicans made themselves damaged goods for November, or will people forget as quickly as they did the Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama squabbles in 2008?
Yeah, I don't think they will. I mean, Hillary Clinton made up with Barack Obama very quickly. I don't see Newt Gingrich. I don't see Ron Paul. I don't see Rick Santorum doing that. The biggest winner on Super Tuesday was Barack Obama. And that is all 4 of these Republican candidates. We've seen their approval numbers drop and their disapproval numbers rise quite a bit during the course of this competitive primary. If Romney were to have swept all 10, and lurched far ahead, and 1 or 2 of the candidates drop out, Romney could then, by April, turn his attention onto Barack Obama and turn all of his fundraising onto Obama, turn his negative attack ads on Obama. As it is, he's got Mississippi and Alabama coming up on Tuesday. Gingrich, Santorum will probably beating in those states. Romney's back to square one.
Who could have predicted that we'd be sitting today talking about this after all this time?
We're liable to be doing this up to the day of the convention, for crying out loud.
There's also been some unexpected landmines. Even the brouhaha over Rush Limbaugh's comment, calling the young lady a slut, came back. There are people who say, well, Bill Maher says equally outrageous things. But it's timing, and right now this is bad timing for the Republicans to have this kind of an issue.
And making women and social issues another wedge issue in the campaign.
It is.
Never stop.
That's true.
We'll be back in a moment with final thoughts from these 2 gentlemen. Stay with us. The Watson wrap-up now.
2 quick points. Number 1, the biggest loser on Super Tuesday was Ron Paul. He's the only one not to have won any states thus far. And Ron Paul thought he could win Alaska and North Dakota. They're small caucus states. He won neither. One reason to add to Brian's why the candidates might stay in through the end is they like to go to the convention with a few delegates to play politics and try to influence the outcome of the convention in terms of policy, or maybe getting themselves a cushy cabinet job.
I'm stunned that that happens at these conventions.
Cynical, but it happens. It happens.
Crowley closer?
Well, you know, the Florida legislature wrapped up its regular session on Friday, where they'll probably go into a special session about redistricting and perhaps some other issues as well. You know, some people were commenting that this was, you know, a very difficult session for them up there, and unlike anything seen in recent memory. I'm old enough to have a fairly long memory, and it made me dig up a picture from 1981. You might recognize one of the people in this picture, when W.D. Childers and Dempsey Barron got into a fight on the floor, and your dad, Senator Edgar Dunn, got between them. That's your dad.
My late
got
father,
between
yes.
them, and in the gallery watching this go on was this young reporter there.
Holy cow. Looks like a
So
werewolf episode.
Hasn't changed
raucous
a
times
bit.
in the
Hasn't changed a
Senate.
bit. That's the ultimate closer.
Almost a fist fight. In your
That's the
dad's
closer.
That's right. That's sweet.
Thank you for spending time with us on today's To The Point.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. Have a great weekend. I love that. That's great.